Okay, so Hereditary is a movie that's out in theaters now that a lot of people are talking about because it's the quote-unquote scariest movie ever made, which is funny because like as I was walking out of my theater, there was somebody like on the phone like angrily talking to somebody else saying like that was not the scariest movie ever made. Just as a primer here, I'm gonna give my general thoughts walking out of the movie and kind of what I thought about it, but I have like a hot take. I have like a complicated kind of analysis that I'm gonna do. Here's what's happened. So I would have had this video out like a few days ago, probably, had I sat down immediately after seeing the movie and really given you the whole scoop, all my thoughts and all of that. But I couldn't do that because I was at a convention for the last 3 days watching this. Yeah, it was quite a time. That said, it ended up being kind of a happy accident there because I got some time to really think it over and have a definitive take. Because pretty much walking out of the movie, my initial thoughts were, I don't know why someone has done this to me. Oh my God.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious. My mother was a very secretive and private woman.
There's about, I don't know, a 15-minute sequence or so in the middle chunk of the movie that's now kind of infamous online for being the moment where the movie loses everyone. That 15 minutes, they were not joking. That 15 minutes is a rough time to be alive. It's one of the most traumatic things I think I've ever actually sat in a theater and watched, and I've seen a lot of shit. It's just this one thing is just like, it's really horrific. There's no way around it. It's really horrific, and a lot of audiences are not going to be cool with it. So if you can't handle something like that, I would not recommend you go see this movie because it will absolutely wreck your day. However, generally, I think the movie is awesome. I think that it's probably one of the kind of neater horror movies I've seen in a while. And I don't like to rank things or put anything on above anything else or whatever. I like to kind of see it all as a big pool. But I think that it kind of signifies this transition from sort of the horror movies that we're fairly used to seeing to being something a bit more there. I hesitate to say that because I think that horror as a genre, like, it's my bread and butter. I love all the stuff. I love everything from the good stuff to the bad stuff to the great stuff to the mediocre stuff for the most part. Mostly because, like, I don't know. I think that there are more maximal horror movies, and I think that a lot of those work really well. A lot of the ones that people say are super dumb, I actually don't think are all that dumb. However, on the other hand, there's more minimal kind of horror, and that's sort of where this resides. It's being compared to like Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and stuff like that, which I think the comparison is not valid because this is a totally different time, and I think the movie has a lot more on its mind than just being one of those movies, like than just being like Rosemary's Baby or just being like The Exorcist. I think that stuff is definitely present in the mind of whoever made it. But at the same time, I don't think that it ultimately matters because the movie is not about those movies. This movie is about something very specific, and the way that it's about it is completely unique to itself. Now, that's my, like, snippet short review of the movie, I guess. I think it's great. I think it signifies a lot of transition into kind of what horror is to become. It's one of the stronger, more minimal horror movies that we've seen in a while. People have brought up The Witch, and I think that The Witch is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies, but I think that this movie has a totally different attitude. towards taking things that, you know, are a little more aggressive and just throwing them in your face. The shift is that aggression. It's like, it's this movie that's so unafraid to be what it is about. Like, and that is amazing. Like, not a lot of movies are willing to have this kind of difficult conversation with the audience, just smacking them in the face with it. And also, like, it is not here to entertain you or to scare you in any sort of fun way. This movie is like an atomic bomb. This movie drops down and it tries to kill you. Like, there's no way around it. Everything that it's doing is there for effect. It's shaking the life out of you. And if that's not something you're really willing to partake in, if you want more fun horror, might I recommend something else? This is not a fun movie, even remotely. But it's also something that I think that culture is somewhat willing to interpret. See, there's like this kind of problem with genre films where a lot of people are really not willing to think about them. They're not willing to think about horror movies in terms of metaphor, in terms of meaning. They're not willing to think about action movies or comedies in the same terms as they are something that like draws attention to how it is definitely about something, like a drama or like an art house film. It's a meaningful genre film that kind of borders on that art house quality where a lot of people go, yes, I would like to think about this movie, rather than just saying, yes, I was very scared. Do you get what I'm saying? On the other hand, I don't feel like I've been seeing a lot of really in-depth stuff about this movie. I've seen some kind of like surface level takes, and there are reasons for this. The first reason being that it's not something you can just start writing about or start talking about. It takes a little bit of easing into it because this movie is really something harsh, and it's hard to go in and just start picking that apart like it's no problem. You know what I mean? So let's just get right into it. Let's stop screwing around. Let's just get to the interpretive analysis stuff, because that's why you're all here.
Come on, Peter. Let's just do it.
Okay, opening shots are so damn important. Opening shots and closing shots are arguably like the most important because they bring you into the fold, and then while you're there, right before you leave, they're like, by the way, this is what this has been about the whole time. The ending is the conceit, and then the beginning of the movie is pretty much like how it aims to sink you in. The whole point of it is to teach you how to watch the movie. So apt. Hereditary, if we're going to analyze the semiotics of the film, we need to understand both how it very starts and very ends, like opening shot, closing shot. So the movie opens on this very long, elaborate one-take shot where we start off on the treehouse, which at that point we don't have any context for, turn around, go into the house, go into the room where the doll houses are, because the mother makes doll houses as art pieces, and then we move into the dollhouse, and the film starts inside the dollhouse. Now, a lot of people would say that this is just some sort of, whatever kind of framing device thing, but my argument is that it teaches you how to watch the movie. Because it does. So a little bit of context, the mother makes these dollhouses as art pieces, and a lot of them kind of reflect true life things that happen to her throughout the movie. So when we're going into one, the implication is that we're going to be told a story through her art. So what I'm saying is, get ready, put your game theory hats on. The whole movie takes place in the dollhouse because it is a reflection of her art. This movie is entirely from her perspective and is entirely what she intends for us to see through the art piece. Like, the art piece is there for her to compartmentalize the things that happen to her in her life. So we're going into one of those to hear basically her perspective on a thing that really happened, which is not to say that what we're going to be watching is a literal interpretation of what happened, but more a story. We're going to be told a story. This is an important distinction to make because this establishes two narratives. The first is, our narrative that we follow throughout the movie, which, as we've established, is inside the dollhouse. This is the story she's telling through her art. And then the second is the meta-narrative. What actually happened?
Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Oh my God, what's that?
If this story that we're seeing is an abstraction to kind of talk about something that actually happened to her, then what actually happened to her? So the movie tells the story of basically how this woman's family kind of fell apart. They all die in the movie, but it's mostly about how her family just falls apart. And then the meta narrative of that whole thing is like that little nugget of a thing actually happened. Like her family did fall apart. Did they die by satanic cult? Maybe not. But that is the way that she's chosen to tell her story. So we're going to be watching her story through her perspective, and that's going to be that.
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
So let's talk narrative, just like the base narrative of the film, because that's a good starting point for us to talk about kind of the meta-narrative of the thing, but we need to kind of establish some stuff. So pretty much, as I said, the story is about this woman's family being torn apart by a mysterious force, which is some unexplainable force that seems to kind of, it's almost like a curse. It just like runs through her family, starting at her mother, who dies at the beginning of the movie. Her mother had a relationship with Charlie, who is the little girl, who then dies by the son's hands by accident, and then she grieves, wants to get her daughter back, so she performs a ritual to bring the daughter back, and then through a bunch of kind of ridiculous and unpredictable circumstances, she gets demonically possessed, kills her husband, and then cuts her own head off, while her son also gets demonically possessed, and then gets possessed by the spirit of Charlie, which is the daughter who died, and then is revealed to have been involved in this elaborate satanic cult plan to allow the demon Payman to enter through the daughter's body inside the boy's body. So at the end, it's son's body, Charlie's soul, Payman the demon. The satanic cult worships all three of them. There are three headless bodies. There's the headless body of the grandmother, there's the headless body of the mother, and there's the headless body of the daughter. And then the son is intact with the daughter's soul, with Payman as well. It's kind of actually really ridiculous when you put it into literal words, isn't it? If it is this thing that I'm saying where it's a dual narrative, we're seeing one thing and the truth is another thing, and we're seeing it through the lens of her art, then that means that basically what we're watching is a character study. We are watching a film told by someone who we don't exactly know what the story is. We definitely know she's telling the story in a way that maybe excuses her own guilt, the things that she's done or said. Maybe she assigns a little bit of blame to herself, but mostly it's to kind of alleviate that guilt that she maybe feels, or that pain that she maybe feels. And a lot of people have taken this to like, they do agree with this sort of metaphor that I'm talking about, but they usually kind of take it one step deeper and say that the movie is kind of a metaphor for how she coped with her grief, if that makes sense, for her dead daughter, which I agree. Another take about it is that it's like about mental illness, which I don't actually super agree with. I think that that's kind of a little obvious. I think that it goes a little deeper than that. But pretty much what we're looking at here is a character study of her relationship with her family and the story she's chosen to tell us in regards to what happened, in a way that makes her look like the rational sane person in the whole thing, that, her mother was an evil satanic cultist, and her daughter, she's taking care of her daughter, and her daughter's maybe a little weird, but suddenly her daughter just goes out and gets taken by her irresponsible brother, and then smashes her head into the telephone pole, just kills her instantly. And then the son can't handle the fact that he's so guilty, so he goes and lays in bed, and he doesn't explain what happened, and he just leaves her in there for his mother to just come out and just see her dead body there. You know what I mean? And then of course at the end, she doesn't kill her husband or something like that. She accidentally kills her husband by throwing the book in the fire. And then, how did that corpse get in the attic? It just did. There was a cult. How did her family all come to die or hate her? Well, it's probably their fault. It's probably the satanic cult's fault. It's probably some other mysterious force that has nothing to do with me. Even a friend that she has that convinces her to do this seance, even she's implicated. She's evil too. She's part of the cult. Everybody's part of the cult. It's hysteria. And then the only time that she ever actually apologizes to her son is so that she can get him to go downstairs to do this seance thing. It's not a sincere, I definitely want to apologize for the right reasons. It's I'm so sorry, please come down and let me do this wild thing that I'm thinking about doing. So obviously what I'm saying is, if we put together all these semiotics, we're basically looking at the story of kind of a manipulative person who feels a lot of guilt and is trying really desperately not to feel said guilt, by telling us this story that she's telling, where she kind of alleviates all of her guilt and instead blames it all on this larger satanic cult thing. It's auteur theory inside of a movie, if you get my drift.
She had private rituals, private friends.
Who's gonna take care of me?
You don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die.
So now we've built to the point. Here's my hot take. You're not going to like it. I'm so sorry. But I'm going to tell you all about it. So the movie is the art piece made by the mother. We're watching it in sequence. It tells the story of how she lost her daughter. Her daughter died. I just heard a horrifying baby cry right outside the door. Oh, gee. Okay, so the movie is the art piece made by the mother throughout the course of the movie, wherein she tells the story of how she lost her daughter. She lost her daughter because her daughter transitioned into her son. Her daughter was transgender and turned into her son. And on that basis, it's an analysis of the complicated grief and guilt and desperation and control and just all of the things that come with that perspective. The fact that she went through this perspective change as her daughter transitioned into her son. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the story and explain to you why this is absolutely the case. Using semiotics, our favorite thing. Okay, so I've written a handy dandy little list here. The grandmother dies and nobody cares except for the daughter. This is immediately followed by a dialogue scene about how grandma treated the daughter like a boy and said it's okay to be a tomboy and all that stuff. The mother agrees it's okay to be a tomboy. This is a triggering event. The reason that the movie starts here is important because this is the moment where Charlie becomes alone in this and has to do something about it. There's no more support network. Now she's all alone with her family. So then two things happen. Charlie goes outside and sees a cultist doing a ritual out in the field, and Charlie watches. This is obviously a foreboding symbol of the coming death. It's the ritual. It's the thing that must be done. It's the irreversible knowledge. Meanwhile, Son hides pain, perhaps, hides something, is lying dormant with substances, like just smoking weed all the time, and that's pretty much all, like, that's his whole character until Charlie dies. That's it. That's his whole character. And then when the narrative shifts to him, he suddenly is this, like, entirely different character. So there's that. So there's the party scene, Charlie dies, and then the son goes to bed and waits for his mother's reaction. This is a pretty common experience, actually, where people often, like, will come out or something like that in a letter or something like that, and they'll leave it for their family, and then they'll have to deal with the reaction the next day, and then they'll lay awake knowing that it's an irreversible thing, and they're terrified, and there's nothing they can do. They're gonna find out, and the mutilated body of the daughter is lying right there for the family to see, and there's no going back. So she feels immense distance from her son and, like, refuses to speak to him unless she's, like, literally just yelling at him for how terrible of a person he is and how guilty he should feel for all of what's happened. So she makes a friend, and that friend convinces her that she needs to do a seance to bring the daughter back. Does that make sense? So she wakes the son up, actually brings the whole family together, and then brings out her daughter's stuff and just desperately tries to bring the daughter back and to show her son that the daughter is still in there. And he just cries profusely and just feels the guilt and feels the shame and feels all the pain and lack of validation coming from her and doesn't know how to stifle it. He doesn't know how to fix it. But it also, like, plants this seed in his mind that's like, maybe this is not the case. Maybe I still am the daughter. But she's got these kind of complex feelings towards the son, like with the nightmares and stuff, where she's like, I didn't want to have you, but I'm glad that you're here. And, all of that. But she also imagines setting him on fire. So there's kind of this complicated web of emotions going on between her and him. It's like she wants to reach out and be okay with it, but she can't, like, because she doesn't want to challenge her own, like, inner status quo about the situation. Meanwhile, dreams are paralleled where the son starts dreaming about Charlie and seeing Charlie everywhere. And Charlie just kind of starts to invade his mind constantly, where which is, mirrors the experience of feeling like, you're not validated and that this past is plaguing you and it's never going to go away and it's never going to feel normal again. Things get worse and worse. The son just can't re-enter high school, and things are just not going well there. Acting out self-mutilation is a thing that happens. Confusion and hurt, it's all there. Again, the mother feels guilty because this is her fault, because she started to bring the daughter back into the thing, so this is all obviously her fault. So what does she do? I'm going to destroy the daughter's stuff. That's going to solve the problem. But when she goes to do that, that act of letting go, it burns her. It starts to pain her, so she can't do it. So she convinces her husband, you got to do it for me, and it'll hurt me real bad. It's going to burn me to death, but you've got to do it. And then he refuses to do it, and he's got this kind of complicated relationship going on too, where he's trying his best to be accepting, but it's also like he's obviously hurt by the constant kind of drama, the constant pain that's kind of lingering around the house or whatever. So when she tosses that thing in the flame, the reason he didn't want to throw it in there is because he didn't want to let go either. So when she throws the book in there, it burns and kills him. It's irreversible pain towards him. He feels like he can't go back, and therefore he disappears from the story because in all likelihood, he disappeared from her life. Okay, so the grandmother is still in the house. Her decapitated body resides in the attic, which is kind of a huge portion of this whole thing because, as I said at the beginning, like Charlie had a kinship with the grandmother, and the grandmother was the only person who knew about the trans thing. The grandmother's aura, spirit, curse, whatever, still resides in the house. It's her fault. That's it. It's not my fault. It's not my son's fault either. He was just influenced by my mother, like, and her evil cult, her evil ways of manipulating people into thinking that they're something that they're not. So then if we jump back to the narrative here, this is where, you know, it's this giant conspiracy and she vindicates herself. She's right. It is this giant ghost, spiritualist, cultist, demon conspiracy that is the entire reason why her family falls apart or whatever. So I'm going to talk about the ending now, and it's kind of going to be non-linear because there's a lot of symbols and semiotics thrown at us really fast, rapid fire in that very end. So hold on to your hats. So the idea of a demon entering Charlie / her son's body comes from the idea that the only way that this could have happened is if the grandma's demon possessed them to do it. It's the only rationalization, and she's got to undo that. Except, of course, when her husband leaves, like, everything falls apart. Like, that's the like switch moment where just like you can see the thing just change in her face, and she becomes weak enough to be possessed by this demon. And then the rest of the movie is just all stuff she can't rationalize because she's possessed. She lost it. Given that she sees the son in this way, she also sees herself in this way, that there is some sort of devil possessing everybody. So the devil is also possessing her. And therefore, she loses her head. You get what I'm saying? She cuts off her own head. She loses it. And this, of course, tears her entire family apart because she pushes herself past that sort of doorway and makes these irreversible choices that alienate everyone around her, so much so that she's never going to fix it. So there's the 3 decapitations. The first is the grandmother, who it's the sacrifice. It's the first loss that is the first stepping stone towards the son coming out. Charlie, who is, the previous vessel, as it were, for the son's soul, now transitioning to something else that has died and then has been decapitated, been replaced. And then the mother as well, which is to say that the thing that was holding back the whole progress, the whole relationship with oneself, she showed herself to be this monster, and they now have irreparable damage to their relationship. Payman, the demon boy that's possessed by Charlie's soul, you get it, is now moving forward into the new kind of narrative landscape past all of this, having these 3 decapitations behind him. They're always going to be there, and they're always going to cause great pain, but they were necessary to get right where he is. And this is all backed up by the specific kind of way in which the mother makes these artistic interpretations, where there is a scene where she is literally designing the scene where Charlie dies, because that's not actually literally what happened. She makes it literal in the narrative by having actually made it as part of the art piece, but it isn't. It's metaphor entirely for things that she would have rather experienced, because those are things she can actually rationalize, where this whole thing, she can't rationalize it.
I just don't want to put any more stress on my family.
Okay, so title, Hereditary, I think it should be pretty clear at this point that it's this belief that a family is cursed. Like, it's this whole family ordeal. It's this family problem. When really, it's true. It is this family problem, but it's not the family problem of of generational like mental illness or how these things sort of pass from one person to the other, but it's this kind of attitude that actively alienates and hurts people in families when they're ultimately made to feel guilty and not accepted. So there is a hereditary pain, but it's the fact that you have to discard these certain elements of the past in order to move forward into a more positive future for oneself. Even if that like makes you look like a demon, it's the only way you can like rationally like live.
She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me.
I recognize you from your mother.
What?
Okay, whew. So that was a lot. I've talked for like an hour now. I don't know how long this is going to be that you're seeing, but probably a lot cut out for time. But okay, so in conclusion, I don't think that my interpretation is the only interpretation. I think that the movie's fairly open-ended to where you can kind of project yourself onto it if you really want to, and think about it. And I encourage that you do that. And I want to hear good interpretations, and I want to be, I want to read them over the course of time as people write about the movie. Ultimately, I think that the reason that all of this is kind of the way that it is because the movie is so much about like compartmentalizing pain into like this kind of artistic interpretation where it's saying that we tell ourselves lies in order to tell ourselves truth. The core of the aesthetic of the movie is right there. Like that's what it's about on an aesthetic level. On a moral level, it's obviously about family and about how families ultimately fall apart because we poke and we prod at them. And it's not necessarily that these problems are hereditary as much as like our desire to look into the void causes the problems. The fact that we prod it is, it's like I'm saying, like the fact that she tries to bring Charlie back is the problem. Because that causes more damage to her family than whatever else was going on. You should look into the void, sure, but don't stare, because that'll kill you. That'll ruin your life. So basically what I'm saying is like, my take is my take, and I encourage you to also have a take or a different take. And I'm interested in hearing what those are, but I hope you found my take kind of interesting because I find it interesting. And I think that on this basis, if that is what the movie's about, then I think that has a lot to say about the way that like people have to struggle with the three deaths, the loss, who's really grieving here. It's the person who, has three decapitated bodies in their past. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare that a lot of people have to experience. The movie does a really good job of putting that out there in a way that makes that clear if you're looking for it. Someone who maybe hasn't heard these things, they're going to get something different. And I encourage that, and I think that that's great. I guess that's where I'm at with Hereditary. Okay. One more thing that happened in the theater. So there was a guy who was in the theater, and I don't know who this guy was or what he was doing there, but he had a large duffel bag and he was muttering to himself very loudly throughout the movie. And we were eating at a dine-in theater, so he kept calling the waitress over and I had no idea what was going on. I walk out into the hallway and that exact waitress is like, that guy is loud, obnoxious, and freaking me out, and I don't know what's going on. Well, anyway, security eventually came in and searched his duffel bag and then like quickly pulled him out of the movie. So I don't know what happened there, but I was so terrified. Like I was already terrified because of the movie. But God damn it, it doesn't have to also be in real life. You know what I'm saying? So was horrified. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Whoa, hello and welcome to the credits of the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, hey, consider giving it a like. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing. That would be super cool of you to do. It's nice to have subscribers and I like to do it. Oh, the names are just rolling by so fast I can barely see them. There are friends. I'm seeing friends' names. Hello, everyone that is friend. Good to see you. Those are my patrons on Patreon, and a lot of them I know from my Discord server, which is Patreon exclusive. If you guys want to support the channel directly, may I suggest you supporting me on Patreon, and considering that right now is kind of like a really kind of tough time trying to get everything together for moving out and stuff, now the Patreon money would be amazing. So thank you guys for all that you do, and those that do support me, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much, and I'll be back with something new very soon. I just shot a whole new show yesterday, and then I have a new analysis video coming out soon, and then there's this, and so it's just raining content over here. I got the good content. Okay, well, goodbye now.